Welcome to the Goffstown School Board. Call this meeting to order at 7. Stand and say the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do we have correspondence tonight?
We do. We have a couple of things. So we have correspondence that went out from the New Hampshire School Boards Association that had some just general information that you probably should have received. We received a very nice letter from Keene State College that was sent to Mr. DeRocher, who is our one of our music teachers here at Goffstown High School. And it is, this is kind of a long letter. You're welcome to read it, but it starts with, "It is such a delight that I send this letter to you in recognition of your fine work with the Goffstown High School Chorus. Your musicians, collaborative pianists are all commended for another fine performance." So more great news from the performing arts. I included here, you'll recall that I've shared with the board that Mrs. Lewis, our Director of School Counseling, is doing these future-focused Friday sessions. And she has the next one set up, and she has someone from Dartmouth Health who's coming to talk about different apprenticeships and training programs. And the presenter is a former school counselor, so she knows a lot about this area, so we're excited to welcome her. And many thanks to Mrs. Lewis for all of her hard work. And then lastly, I wanted to share with you that I sent out, I copied it to the board, so you should have received a copy, but the Department of Education, the New Hampshire Education Department, I'm still trying to learn that. There's a lot of years to undo in my mind. But every year they do a survey that is a community and parent and educator feedback loop. And it's all part of something they call the 603 Bright Futures Survey. So I sent that out, and I included that in your folder as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, commendations, good news. Lil, what do you have for us tonight?
So Student Council will be having Steve Coppola's Hypnotist Show on April 13th at 7 p.m. in the Hebrew Theater, which I'm very excited about. Prom is officially in the works and will be May 26th at St. A's from 6 to 10. This week there are tryouts for tennis, boys and girls lacrosse, baseball, softball, and spring track. So very excited for spring sports. And Rho Kappa National Honor Society for Social Studies is looking for interested sophomores and juniors to be new members next year. The deadline to get your application in is April 23rd, and there are QR codes around the school, specifically closer to Mr. Pishka's room, just giving you all the information and where to submit your application.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Great. An update from Bartlett. They are in the middle of their Penny Wars, which is a fundraiser that their parent group is running. So the students have been very competitive, as well as the staff, for getting involved in that fundraiser. Over at Mountain View, they had their staff versus student basketball game last week, which was sold out. Sorry, students, the staff did win the game this year, as they should have. They had March Arts Festival also at Mountain View last week, which is our 7th and 8th graders in performing arts, and our 5th and 6th graders will perform their March Arts Festival tomorrow night. Lastly, I want to mention that our 7th and 8th grade students that are in our literacy program at Mountain View collectively read over 100 reading books by winter break, which is pretty remarkable. They were given a goal to try to reach 200 by the end of the year, and as of last Thursday, they've already read over 150 independent reading books. So pretty remarkable, and a special thank you to Mrs. Nato, who is our literacy teacher, for really just embracing reading and getting our students involved in the reading process. Some of the students involved in literacy are some of our reluctant learners and some of our students who really need extra practice, and she's just done a phenomenal job pushing them to find books that they're interested in.
That's great. Great. That's all you have?
Sorry.
Yes, that's fine. That's great. Thank you, Wendy. Yep. Anyone else? Ginny?
Yeah. I went to the girls' basketball semifinal playoff game, which was an amazing game. Unfortunately, the girls didn't win, but they played a very hard game against a very tough physical team. So, yeah, well played, ladies.
Thank you, Ginny. Anyone else? Commendations, good news? Go ahead,
And
Scott.
on that note, one of our players was named Player of the Year.
Oh,
So
nice.
Ava Winterburn was named Player of the Year for Division I girls basketball, and she'll be playing at SNU next year. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
good job for
It
her.
was a great game.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commendations, good news? No? All right, so I'll open up public comment, which I don't see any. So the next is approving March 6th school board meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read them? Anybody see anything? Go ahead.
I saw just this crazy thing. It's on, I think, page 9. I think it's page 9. It was where we were talking about privatization. The last sentence, there's just a T in front of the R. For R, the word, there's just a T in front of it.
Do you have any idea where? This page 9 talks about the turnaround.
Okay, it's before that,
Manifest.
Okay, the last sentence of the first paragraph, we have support staff.
On page 9.
Support staff contract up
Yes.
for a vote in a few weeks, and
Or.
the T in front of the R. It's not a
Word
biggie.
or.
Yeah.
Okay. Denise, did you find that? I did. Okay. Anything else? Go ahead, Dan.
Top of page 10, the paragraph, last sentence before the vote, I would like to add the word able between Ben and to, so it reads, "This is one of the better projects that we have been able to fund and get done."
Good. Okay. Did you get that, Denise? Okay. Anything else?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Sure, go ahead,
as-
Ellen.
As revised for March 6th.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
By Dan. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? We're unanimous. All right, committee reports, A and F. Dan, you
A&F.
want to do the manifest?
We have a manifest. What I would like to do is propose a motion to approve the manifest dated today in the amount of $2,442,648.33.
All right, do I have a second? I'll second. By Caroline. All right,
Some
go
of the
ahead,
highlighted items, we have taxes, payroll, benefits, $1.8 million. We have a second payment to Health Trust, or another payment to Health Trust. They happen once a month. We had one 2 weeks ago, but that was kind of like at the end. This is the first, they're coming up. So that's why it's $1.8 million. We have 3 expenses for sped activity, this manifest. Durham School Services, $66,500. That's both in and out of district for transportation and monitoring. The Lighthouse School, $13,939, out of district February and March, and another one to the Northeast DEP, $6,900 for January services. Some general expenses, Goffstown Truck Center, $142,400, and I'm rounding these. That's the regular ed, athletic, and co-curriculum. Field turf, that's our payment for the field, $97,132. We've made a couple of those. Manchester School District for the School of Technology tuition, a little over $43,000. Dead River, which is propane, $33,600. Budget document technology, this is quarterly copier and managed print services, $21,000 and change. Blue Service, Glen Lake boiler replacement, $18,000. If you want to know what the boiler looks like, it's a little smaller, and Scott would love to tell you because he took a tour. Northeast flooring, remember we modified the floor for the portable in front of Maple Ave, the old one, $5,300. BMO Harris, which is our credit card, $5,100. This is pretty much for HVAC filters, over $4,000 to replace all the filters, and some miscellaneous supplies. Then the food service, chocolate milk and other items, $19,800. And we had a payment to Thermal Store for the Mountain View and Goffstown High School compressor units, payment number 2 of 2, $13,500.
All right, thanks, Dan. Does anybody have any questions for Dan or Scott? All right, I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
All right, Scott.
Okay, going quickly, the renovation project is on hold for the field due to the snowstorm. That being said, we are seeing more donations coming in for that press box. What we heard is that the windows and many of the doors are being donated. Once they get delivered. So that's a really nice thing, and we're pricing out the construction of it as we speak. So this week we should get estimates on that. So other than that, that project is moving well. We get a little setback with the weather. The next one that we talked about was the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative. I went back and I reviewed some of the documents from Sourcewell. They are a Minnesota-based company. There are some Minnesota regulations and statutes which I looked into, as well as their bylaws. They do allow, obviously, for other states. So they have statutes that created this purchasing cooperative, and now they allowed other states and other entities to take advantage of it, basically. So I looked into that. Our New Hampshire purchasing laws and our local policies obviously supersede all of that, as well as any federal regulations. But in terms of due diligence, we've done our due diligence with respect to Sourcewell. Sourcewell, for those of you who may have forgotten, they're a purchasing cooperative. That this is the pricing that we were able to secure for the field. But they also do a lot of heavy equipment, whether that be tractors, a lot of facilities, supplies, and like Granger is another one that they have partnerships with. If we were to buy furniture, same thing, where they're doing a lot of the bidding nationally versus us going out to bid more locally. So with that, I think, Caroline, you had a motion that I hope that.
I do.
Did anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
one additional thing, going through a lot of that paperwork, there were a lot of pages. You say, how do these guys get their money and funded? I did notice a little line in there that says the cooperative gets paid by the vendors in order for them to be part of the consortium, which is kind of weird. I've never seen that with the vendors themselves. Maybe you have, Jared, but
It's pretty common.
Yeah.
really.
Go ahead, Jenny.
I think it's a good idea, but I just have one question is, does that keep us from doing things locally, buying from people locally?
No. And I say that pretty much emphatically, but a lot of things that we're buying, like when we buy furniture, we're not really buying school-type furniture through a local type company. And/or if we were to buy, you could still buy your equipment, like, let's say you're buying a snow blower, you might still buy it through like a local distributor here, but what we might find is that particular snow blower, you might be able to buy it somewhere else and have it shipped in, and it's still a lower cost. So those decisions are still going to get made at our local level. So I'm not really too concerned about it, but it allows us to fulfill our purchasing requirements of getting just different bids as well, so that's helpful. And then whether or not we take that low bid, in the case of an RFP, is always, it's always up to the board in that respect.
Anyone else have any questions, comments for Scott before we hear the motion? No? All right, Caroline.
All right, so I'll make a motion to authorize the chair and business administrator to sign the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative Participation Agreement.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
By Shane. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Jared.
I just want to make sure, Mr. Chair, and this is to piggyback off Ginny, it's not locking us in to say we shall use these people. It's just another option that we can use.
Right, it allows me to go on their website and to look up what is the cost of certain, products. Doesn't say we have to do that, but it just, without being in that participation agreement, I can't do that.
Okay, so we can pick and choose?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, you guys all set?
Yep.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? We're unanimous. All right, thank you, Scott.
All right, next is,
Essers are further down in the,
that's further down. And let me see what else
The-
we did. Oh, the TD Bank brokerage.
Yes.
So we did get the securities funds finally wired to us. And as I shared it in A&F, unfortunately, we did lose a little bit of money by the time we got the donation from the time we were able to sell. So we were supposed to have gotten an alert, which we did not get. The funds came in at, I think, 3:30 or 3:45 on a Friday with no alert. By the time we learned about it on Monday, and then we were able to sell it, I think we lost around $4,000 of those funds. So again, not a massive issue, and it can happen. But that said, we do have those funds now in our account. What we got from our treasurer is a request not to close this brokerage account. It took over a month and a half to set it up and to do all of the hard work and Lissa Winrow is the school treasurer, and she sent an email to Laura asking that the board reconsider their position. If you recall, about a couple of months ago, the board voted to do this securities wire transfer, and then after that to immediately close the account. Well, I think that immediately close the account is going to happen tomorrow or Wednesday unless there's board action. So luckily, we have a school board meeting, and I did talk to the A&F committee about reconsidering that, keeping it open in case we did get another donation of stocks or any type of security. So Lissa stated that because it was such a lot of work, could you keep it open and in case something else comes up? Because if you have to do this again, it was just a ton of work on her end.
Ellen, go ahead, I saw your hand up.
Does it cost us anything to keep it open?
No.
And if we vote to keep it open, there's no negative to us to have it available. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that was the discussion in A&F as
Okay.
well, as long as there was no cost associated with keeping the brokerage account open, and there was, I think there's going to be a motion to that effect.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Scott, do we have to keep a minimum balance in the brokerage account?
Nothing.
And so we just have to make sure it's reported on our financials as we move forward, as it is an asset?
If there is no
Well,
asset, there's no money in it,
there'd
so,
be-
right.
The opportunity to put assets there.
But we don't have to report it, 'cause there's nothing in there.
But if there was something in there.
Then you would have to report
Right.
it.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we can always bounce it off the auditors and just say, hey, we have the account, it's open.
Yeah, we're going to let
Um,
them know anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So if we need to do anything, they will let us know. I think we might have to report it on the balance sheet with a zero balance.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the one thing I would also consider is, because it's a request from Lissa, that we would also keep in mind that Lissa's is a term for 3 years, and I think it comes up again next year. So we may want to limit or get a reauthorization every time she would be re-elected or someone else were to be elected.
Right, yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions about this?
You need
All
a
right.
motion?
Yeah, I think
We have
Caroline
one.
has the
Yeah.
motion.
So I'm going to
Thank you,
motion to retroactively keep the TD Bank brokerage account open as long as there are no costs associated with it.
Thank you, Caroline. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Dan. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
Question.
Thank you, Scott. Yes, Ellen?
Do we need to technically make a motion about what Dan's suggestion was, that we do this whenever there's another person? Or-
It's in the minutes.
But we didn't decide to do that. It was a suggestion. I don't think there's any disagreement with it, but I'm thinking it's going to go far down the road.
Right.
and-
I will tell you that because Lissa is the authorized signature on that account. If there was a new treasurer, you would have to change that anyway, so it's going to have to come back to, that is the time where it's going to reopen.
So the board authorizes who signs it?
The treasurer.
No, it's
treasurer?
TD Bank themselves, because
TD Bank.
TD Bank required the treasurer to sign.
Right.
And if that signatory is no longer treasurer, the brokerage account is null and void.
Yep.
Okay, so to keep it going, it would automatically have to come back to us.
If there was a different
If it was a
treasurer.
different
Okay.
person. And she runs, it's a 3-year term, right?
It's a 3-year term.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Scott, are you set for
Yep,
now?
we're all good.
Okay. So Budget Committee, Jared?
No budget meetings, TBD after election.
Right. PNC, Retta?
Yeah, our next meeting is April 3rd at 6:15, but I do want to just give you a couple updates about Springfest. You all have this in your package. I pinged you a couple times, get you fill this in, and to the best of my ability, I came up with a schedule. I think the only, Shane, we have 3 people from 10 to 11:30. Probably not necessary, but it's fine to have 3 people there. It's just, many people signed up for the first shifts in the morning, so I tried to.
I was just working around nap time.
His nap time.
Who's nap time? Who's nap time?
So, as it's set up, it's it's all here, and
The bottom of your packet. And the reason I'm not going is because I have to go visit my son's college with advisor stuff, and that is the only day to do that, so that's why my name is not on there.
And that's good, important stuff.
Yeah, but I feel bad that I can't be here, but I have to be in Rhode Island.
So, Rhett, if I can just add, we have Mr. Gross was kind enough to procure a presentation trifold kind of easel unit that we have been working on. We will populate that for you, so we've got kind of, it's like 3 different sections, so we've got like 3 different themes that we'll have it all ready for you. You'll have some talking points, we'll have a couple of handouts for you,
Nice.
so we'll set you up for success.
Yep.
You
And
know there's a
the tentative topics are right under the schedule. I have a list of the things that will be there. So just everyone try to find your great tie-dye
Yeah, right.
SAU t-shirts if you want to wear those. That would be great. Yes.
Who was representing the school board for the school board select board? I think there was a sumo wrestling match that was going on. Did
Oh,
they
I
share
think that would
with
be
you?
Jared.
Did
Yeah,
they-
anyone else who wants to do it.
I'm glad that didn't offend Jared. He embraced it.
Keep it on! Who am I going up against?
I think it was
Anybody.
Kelly
You
Boyd
got 'em.
was-
That'll be tough.
We want pictures.
Yeah, really. So we'll also have a bowl of candy there, so if the kids aren't interested in the school board budget, give them some candy. The other thing, I just wanted to say, they're asking that we park in the back to leave the front. So they asked that, and that's all in there. I think that's it for the spring fling. And then the teacher appreciation week, we had some more conversations. We'll discuss this further at the school board meeting, but there might be a video from the board to the faculty, so if you guys are interested in
That's a cool idea.
being in a video. But that's all I have. Is
Which
that
means we have
enough?
to make it. We have to make the video.
We have, well, someone will make it for us. But we just have to talk.
We have a plan, Mrs. V. We have a plan.
So you're all set?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Retta. All right, policy, we did not meet last week due to the weather, so we're meeting again April 10th at 5:30 at the SAU. C&E?
We did not meet last week either, and we're meeting on the 4th,
April.
April 4th.
10th.
10th, I'm sorry. We will be meeting April 10th at 7 PM at the SAU.
Great, thank you. SAU policy, Shane.
Switching my
The
numbers
SAU
much.
19 Policy Review Committee will meet at 5 PM before our next SAU board meeting at the SAU central office. And we have 6 policies to get through, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
So-
so it shouldn't be too bad. And then right after that is the SAU board meeting at 6 o'clock at the SAU. All right, superintendent's report.
Thank you. So this is an exciting one. I'm very pleased to let everyone know that Brandy Williams, who is our assistant principal at Mountain View, has been chosen as the recipient of the 2023 A+ Administrator Awards, recognized by the New England League of Middle Schools. This award recognizes an exceptional middle school leader who values, understands, and supports middle-level education that promotes powerful learning for young adolescents. So congratulations to Ms. Williams, and I know that, or I have it on good authority, that Mrs. Kohler might be venturing down on next Sunday evening to go be part of the presentation for Brandy to receive the award.
Nice.
So many thanks to Wendy for doing that, particularly on a Sunday, and congratulations to Brandy. And if you don't know Brandy, she is a pretty remarkable human being, and we're very lucky to have her as part of our team. So last week, we had a little bit of snow, and it impacted our election. The election, of course, has been postponed until next Tuesday, the 28th. I think that that was a good decision. I think that communities that went ahead with the vote, and some places even voting in the dark with no power, with volunteers using their cell phones as flashlights, I'm glad that we didn't do that. The storm was very impactful. We felt it more in New Boston than in Goffstown. So Goffstown got about 16 inches of snow. New Boston got over 30, which sounds crazy, but it really happened. That's how much snow we got. It was just a little extra elevation. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was just unbelievable. It just started snowing and didn't stop. We had a number of bus challenges that day. About 60 to 70% of New Boston was without power. That included me, that certainly included Mrs. Kohler. And my decision was, even though we don't have power in town, we had power at the school. So I am always of the school of thought that when families don't have power, it's better to have kids in a warm, lit building where they can be fed. So despite the transportation challenges that we had, we did not have any missed school. We did a delayed opening on that Wednesday, and that was really to give everyone enough time to clear up, to clean the parking lots. Just share as an example, the Conval School District was closed Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Those kids didn't go back to school until Friday. So I do think it's worth sharing that it was important for me to get kids back into school, and New Boston really was a challenge, but overall we came out of it okay. I wanted to let the board know, this is one that kind of quietly snuck by a lot of us, but there is a new statute, this is RSA 193:26A, and it speaks to graduation requirements. And beginning with next school year, every student who is at least 18 years of age, who is otherwise eligible to graduate, has to have a free application for federal student aid filed with the United States Department of Education. Or you have to sign a waiver that you're not willing to do that in order for us to give them a diploma. I have an issue with this. I think it seems incredibly unfair to a student if a family chooses to not submit the federal student aid information, which includes all kinds of personal financial information of parents. I don't think that that's reason for us not to give a kid a diploma, but that's what the statute is.
Did that pass both bodies and get signed by the gov?
So this is one, Dan, that when this came to me, I said, Sununu signed this? So I don't know if he either signed it or if he let it become law without his signature. That I can't speak to, but it is in effect.
Was that a 2022 or 2023?
It was last year.
2022.
So it was 2022, and it's RSA 193:26A. And I had the opportunity to speak to Commissioner Edelblu about this past Friday, and he did confirm that, yes, you will need to do this, and that students either need to have the FAFSA forms submitted, or they need to have the waiver signed. I do have a copy of the waiver. I think we included it in your packets. So if you wanted to see the waiver that the State Board of Ed is using, it looks like this. It says FAFSA form.
We don't have it.
Oh, you don't have it? It's just basically a paragraph saying that I acknowledge that I'm not providing that information. Again, it surprises me that this became law, but here we are.
So this is next school year.
This
not
is next school
one.
year, but I will tell the board that I do not plan on withholding any student's diploma because their parents did not fill this out, so we will work closely with them to have anyone impacted by this fill out that waiver process.
Thank you.
And
If I may,
does
that was
the waiver,
2021.
So even longer.
Yeah, 209, chapter 209.
Yeah, and Dan, this one, at the time, I mean, what were we doing in '21? We were doing all things COVID all the time. So I don't know how we missed this one, but a lot of us did, and we were just surprised. And it just seems so unfair to punish a kid because their parents don't want to give financial information. And people might have good reasons for that.
Right,
Well, it's nobody's business.
right. Well, you have to do the FAFSA for college if you want financial aid.
Only
or
if you
any-
do
Not
it.
every child goes.
But
Not
not
every
everybody
child
does
does
it.
goes to
Right.
college? or-
Agreed.
Shane, did
So
you have your hand
astonishing.
up?
I did, but
Okay.
I
Oh.
can go last, it's fine.
Okay. I didn't realize everybody had their hands up. All right, Shane, go first.
Okay. I guess I just had a question for Brian. How difficult is it going to be for our staff to track this as far as making sure every kid is a FAFSA? And I know school counseling has a pretty good handle on this stuff, but is this going to be like another layer of?
Of course it is. This is another example of, here we are, yet another unfunded mandate in the state of New Hampshire. Every time they pass something that creates a new burden on school districts or municipalities, we have to figure it out, we have to track it, we have to man it, we have to provide documentation to the department. So again, this is one, it surprises me, but
Doesn't make any sense.
here we are.
Makes
And by the way, parents are going to be mad about this. When we say to them, in order for you to get a diploma, you have to submit this financial application.
Right.
And they're going to say, why are you making
Why?
us do it? And I'm going to say, it's not us.
Right,
This was not us.
and it's not an easy application either.
It's not, it's.
Yeah, and again,
Go
I
ahead,
get,
Ginny,
I get the
questions?
premise. The premise is, have kids do it, even if they don't think they're gonna go to college, so it's done, it's over, and it's one less barrier that they potentially have to deal with down the road. But again,
That's up to
in
the
a world
parents.
where
That's
we
up to
value
them.
parent
Yeah.
rights, this feels like
Yeah.
something that got
And privacy rights.
overstepped.
Right. Go ahead, Retta.
Could we preemptively ask all parents to sign the waiver on their senior year and just have that on file? Then if they do the FAFSA,
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
then...
Yeah, I
then-
think Mrs. McCann is thinking something similar, so.
Because it
Just
could
to
be
get it
like a,
done.
you know,
It
you
can
send
be,
it out
it
with all
can
the
become
other
part of the
forms.
paper.
Right.
And by the way, who says that you even have to do it the year they graduate, right?
Right.
So you're a new incoming student at Goffstown High School, this could just become part of the waiver, part of the
Well,
paperwork process.
Don't forget, this only is 18-year-olds.
Yeah, if they're 18 when they graduate.
Which is
Most
almost
of
every
them,
single one of them. So,
Agreed.
yeah, we only, probably out of, 230 graduates, most of them would be.
Right, but freshmen aren't, so when you come
Right.
down
No,
here
freshmen
as a
aren't.
freshman.
I just want to have a workaround.
Go
You know,
ahead,
I
Shannon.
don't want to withhold a diploma.
Yeah, no. Go ahead.
So does the waiver, really clear the requirement?
Yes, according to the commissioner, it does. So if we have the waiver, then the parents are good. And there's a third provision that I think wasn't necessarily put into statute, but the commissioner shared with superintendents, which is if the principal has done everything that they can to get the waiver, but they haven't, that there's almost like a principal level waiver that the principal can say, I tried to get the waiver and I was unsuccessful.
Instead of just talking with him, can you have that in writing? So there's no surprises later? that definitely the waiver clears students?
Yeah, he shared with us that this is a new statute and the department is leaving this to school districts. So I certainly can, and that would be maybe something for next year as we get, because it's not even
Okay.
required yet this year. But I wanted to, as soon as this one
It's the
came.
23-24 school district. school year.
23-24
Oh, and you
school
too?
year.
All right, so I saw Lil's first, and then Jared. Go ahead,
I'm
Lil.
good. I had the same question as Retta.
Ezra, perfect. Go ahead, Jared.
To the best of our knowledge, is there any detriment if we do not comply with this?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Are they going to revoke our certification?
Right.
Are they going to assess?
So the only
penalties?
person whose certification would be in jeopardy is probably mine. So this would be a,
So if we just had everybody sign a waiver the senior year, that would cover everything.
we will figure out, kind of the best way to implement this. And
Yeah.
again, my intent is, I am not going to withhold anyone's diploma because their parents didn't fill out a required financial
And
form.
do you need a motion to that, so the board backs that?
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the support. I just want to be clear with the board that it will be my intention to not withhold a diploma over this. I do know that there are some discussions in some neighboring communities of state reps to file a legislative services request to revoke this statute. So I think that may happen. And again, I understand the intent, while kids are still in school. Just like if a student isn't going to go to college, we still encourage them on the day that it's free, submit an application to the community college system. Even if you don't accept it, you're in as an accepted student. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you would have that ability to kind of seamlessly re-enter.
Yeah, but the term is encourage, not withholding something if they
Right.
choose not to, and it should be their choice.
I agree, and like I said, this one slipped by us in 21, but
ahead, Dan.
it is very much in statute now.
So one of the things, reading the law very quickly and hearing what Commissioner Edelblu says, it's apparent that it indicates that the origination may have been that individuals and parents did not know FAFSA existed for some reason. I'm not saying that's the case, but that's how it almost reads, and they're force-feeding it.
Right.
And I don't think it was meant to withhold a diploma, although they put those heavy words in there.
They sure
Yeah.
did.
That makes,
That's a big
yeah.
thing.
It's a big step.
So you got to go back to 2021, and I might be doing some looking up later.
Would make more sense just to put out the information that FAFSA is there for everybody.
That's what I think the intent was,
You know.
and why not do it
what they did.
differently?
Which
Can
it
we put
is.
this in?
It is. Our
If this
counselors tell the
continues,
students
how
all
about
that
putting in a
stuff.
student handbook?
Yeah.
And we can attach it
think-
to a form, the form can be downloaded, they can sign it and just hand it in.
Yeah. Jared had his hand up.
I want to, in combination of all the discussions we've had with the Department of Education, or whatever they're called at this point in time, I would recommend that we say we would be happy to implement this once they give us money for being a receiving district, as what's also in statute.
Oh, right.
They never funded it, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I would just encourage the superintendent to say that there are board members, that at least they're in his district, that are saying that.
Mr. Gross and I like that kind of logic right there.
Yes, there you go. That works.
Yep. So
All right,
just
go ahead. Yeah, I
a few
think
more things, if I
everybody's
may. So we have scheduled the funding presentation at the board's request. So the Fair Funding Project will be here on May 15th. And I assumed that the answer would be yes, but I wanted to ask the board, would you like me to invite members of the general court? So we have our new state senator, as well as our reps. So I wanted to ask, but I thought the answer might be yes. Would you like them to be invited? It wouldn't be necessarily time with them, but they would be here to hear the same presentation.
Yep.
So if the board is in agreement, I'll invite our members of the general court.
And what was that date?
May 15th?
May 15th.
Do we have a time for that yet?
It'll just be the regular
School
7
board
o'clock
meeting.
school board
Yeah.
meeting. So
okay.
the only other thing that we have scheduled, we're in the process of scheduling, but we don't have a date yet. I just want to remind the board, the ED 306 series, which are the so-called minimum standards, are being revised. And the State Board of Ed hired Fred Bramante, who is a former state board member, to facilitate this process, and they are doing listening sessions. I have signed us up, I've been on the list since last fall, for us to host a listening session at Goffstown High School. I don't have the date yet, but we will, when we get that, I will let the boards know, New Boston as well as our faculty and staff, our teachers. I would like as many of us that can be there to go and review the document and ask questions. I've participated on a committee that has reviewed the standards and have given feedback to Mr. Bramante. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack in these standards. So that's still in process. We had a snow issue before Christmas vacation, but we were able to get Bartlett students to come and see Seussical. So they were here on the 24th, and because they were here, and because we were here, we decided to use it as an opportunity not only for the children to be entertained and inspired by our wonderful performing arts department and students, but we also used it as an opportunity to do a brief reunification drill with the entire Bartlett school while they were here. So that was an opportunistic move on our behalf, and it went very well, thank you. Mr. Gross received notification that we have received $9,157.18 has been approved by Governor and Council for us to remediate some lead in drinking water remediation efforts that we did, so we finally got that money. We are hosting, in collaboration with other South Central school districts, on April 8th, we are hosting our student reps. And I'm super excited that Lily's going to be a part of this. And right now, we've got, I think we're up to 7 other towns, or maybe 6 other towns that are participating. So I'm hoping that number grows a little bit. But the whole premise was, what a wonderful opportunity to get our student reps together, to let them meet one another. Becky Wilson from the School Boards Association is going to be with us. We're going to do a little bit of training, but mostly we want the kids just to be able to get together and work together and get to know each other. And I think I shared with the board, the School Boards Association liked this idea so much that they're taking it on next year and are going to do this statewide. So this will be the first of what will probably be an annual fall and spring conference for our student reps through the School Boards Association. So I'm really.
When is that happening?
That's happening on Saturday, April 8th, right here at Goffstown High School. And I think we said 9 o'clock. It's in the morning. So that's exciting. And my last thing is just letting you know that we will do a new school board member orientation for Goffstown and New Boston board members who are new after the election.
Perfect.
And that's all I have, and I'd be happy to stop there and answer
Dan.
any questions.
One more thing.
Please.
Because the election was canceled, we didn't lose any school days. Are we going to lose school days because they're going to come next Tuesday?
So I should have shared this, Dan. Next Tuesday will be a remote day in Goffstown and New Boston. So otherwise, we would have canceled school, and I did not want to do that. And I figured we had enough notice that we let teachers know, we let families know, so it will be, and I apologize, I should have shared that. So that will be a remote day for our students.
Thank you.
I doubt that this will happen, but when we see the revised standards, will we know what they changed? Because I have studied the old, so.
Right now, the School Boards Association and the School Administrators Association have what's like a side-by-side version of like old and new. So yes.
Okay.
And we'll give out copies of all of those things in advance when we have our session. There are 22 school districts that have asked to host a listening session. SAU 16 is on the list. So we are one of 21 others who are doing the same. And really, I've reviewed the standards, I've had the chance to speak to Mr. Bramante, I've had the chance to speak to the commissioner, but I think school board members, I think teachers, I think support staff, community members should have the ability to come in and hear about these standards because they are sweeping changes. Grade levels are gone, replaced with learning levels. Every student requires an individualized, almost like an individualized education plan.
Yep.
And I shared, well, probably not surprising to this board, I think that that's a great idea, but the state doesn't fund education, and to put this additional burden on us without any additional funding is crazy.
So,
Give it.
Oh, we're good.
Somebody have a
Okay.
question over here? Jenny, did you have a question?
so it's no longer by when your birthday is, what
Correct.
grade level. So a child who doesn't pass a standard test at the end of a year doesn't go to the next grade?
It's not about standardized tests, it's about competencies.
Okay.
Now, the standardized test could be a measure of the competency.
Right, so a child who doesn't meet it at the end of third grade doesn't go to fourth?
So these are all good questions to ask the state board.
I'll be loaded with that one.
There's a lot to look at in the
Yeah.
standards. It's
Okay,
pretty
so it's
important.
something to study.
You all set?
I am, thank you.
All right, is everybody all set? Go ahead, Rheta.
It's more of a comment. I believe the New Hampshire School Board Association, I participated in a presentation. It's not going to answer all your questions, but if you want a primer, I definitely recommend watching that recorded video because
Okay, how
there's
do
a
you-
lot.
how-
There's a lot there.
On
There's
their
a lot
website?
there.
On the New Hampshire, I'll see if I can get you information
Okay.
because as
Because that would be good
subscribers,
to
we
have
get
sort of a-
access to all the
A
past.
primer before I read
Yeah.
the whole thing,
It's a lot to
Jared,
take
Did you have your
in.
hand up?
I'm sure.
Is everybody set with Brian? All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Brian. All right, old business, second reads tonight. So we'll go through them one by one, make motions and vote on them. So the first policy is BGE, policy dissemination. And this was just eliminating hard copies of manuals in the school.
Move to approve BGE.
By Ellen, do I have a second?
Second.
By Caroline, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. The next one is IHBG, home education instruction,
Move to approve,
and also the reg, sorry.
move to approve IHGB policy, and the reg is attached?
Yes,
No, it's
the
not.
reg is, yeah, it's the,
Okay, it's not on this packet.
it's underneath. Isn't it? No. No, I'm sorry. Wrong one.
IHGB.
Yep, just one, sorry, my fault. Too many I's
No
and
problem.
H's, BG. All
So
right,
I move to approve it.
all right, thank you. Ellen, do I have a second?
Second.
By Shane, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, so the next one is IHBH, Extended Learning Opportunities.
Move to approve policy IHBH as presented.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
By Caroline, any further discussion?
Just one.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
On the bottom where it's reviewed, the PRC, we did that on February 13th. Are we going to modify that to say the full board reapproved it?
Yeah,
Perfect, thank you.
thanks, Dan. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. The next one is policy JJJ.
Jay?
Yeah,
JJJ.
3 Js. And this is access to public school programs by non-public charter school and home educated students.
Okay, move to approve JJJ.
Thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Caroline. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. And the last one is policy JLDBB. This is suicide.
Thank you.
Can we vote to eliminate the regulation because it was a combination with JJJ?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I'll
I
make a
missed
motion
that.
to eliminate regulation JJJR as the regulation has been combined with policy JJJ.
Thank you, Shane. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Caroline.
Caroline.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, so now the last one is the suicide prevention response.
Move to approve policy JLDB.
Thank you, Ellen. Do I
What
have
did
a
we do to the R on this one?
Maybe there wasn't.
We don't have a reg for this one. This
It's-
one
it's
was,
on-
that's, you're looking at,
That's the one that has the form, the
Right.
response.
Did we, I thought we did something, either we,
You put it as a one instead of an R
right.
in policy. Because it's not a regulation.
oh, but, so we're not going to talk about it tonight, though?
No.
Okay. Oh,
It's just that it's
Well,
on
no,
the
we're
list.
just approving
Plan,
the,
it's not gonna change.
okay.
the policy. All right, so I had a motion by Ellen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Caroline. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Thank you, guys. All right, updates. Scott, that's you, ESSER grants.
Sure. Periodically, it's recommended that we go over our ESSER grants in terms of the committed funds, the committed projects, and the use of funds. So in front of you, you should have a colored sheet. Most of what I'm saying is going to be something that you already know, but again, just for the more of the public's benefit. The first ESSER award was ESSER 2, and we were awarded a little over $1.1 million. You'll recall that the board voted to use those funds for a district-wide windows replacement project. That project was completed, and that involved Bartlett, Maple Avenue, some windows at Mountain View, as well as the tech wing here at the high school. On that sheet, you're also going to see that there are indirect costs. This is a grant administration cost. This goes to the SAU for the administration of all of the grants that we received, and it's helping to defer the cost of the temporary employee that we have. There is about $3,000 left in that grant, and I chatted with Steve Borget. I think he's going to try to get some IT equipment and kind of close that one out. ESSER 3 is the larger one. That's a little over $2.5 million. And just, again, as a refresher, and for those of you who are watching on television, 20% of that $2.5 million must be spent on addressing student remediation. So everything that you see on this sheet in blue, and I'm not going to list everything, but it ranges from tutoring to a dean of remediation, a Bartlett special education teacher, guidance counselors at Mountain View, and most of the big one, which is what the assistant superintendent is working on now, is the math program. All of those are student remediation related, so we will have no problem meeting that $507,000 requirement, as we're on track to almost double that, so we're nearly double it. So with respect to ongoing projects, the field renovation project is one of them. We'll have right now, again, approximately $56,000 of funds that are not committed. So I think we're in pretty good shape with respect to the ESSER 2 budget for the use of those funds. And from speaking with my peers, we're pretty well ahead of schedule in terms of that. ESSER 2 expires on September 2023, which is this year. And again, we're going to close that one out hopefully the next month or two. ESSER 3 expires in September of 2024. So I think if you look at this, you'll see a very balanced approach. Yes, some of it was staffing, some of it was social emotional learning, some of it was technology, a lot of it was capital projects. We didn't have too many instances in which we hired people and then had to then put them into the budget. I think we had only a couple of instances there, but then we repurposed positions. Other districts who went very heavy on staff found themselves in a very precarious spot where they either had to then raise their budgets or eliminate those staff. And I think, again, to give the board and our district credit, I think it was very balanced. There are two other grants. One of them is an ARP ESSER IDEA grant. That one is mostly managed by our assistant superintendent our special ed director, who's monitoring that one. That one is funding a second year of a Bartlett special education teacher, so that's ongoing for this particular year. We are using it for special education consultations, purchase of iPads, some workshops, and for some stipends. All of those say pens because not all of them have been spent. But again, we have till September 2024 for that one. And the only one really where we have to do more work on in terms of allocations, and that's the ARP ESSER preschool. So we'll have to have some discussions with you, Wendy, and probably, Kathy Stoyle in terms of how we're gonna handle that grant. But overall, I think we've been very fortunate working with the state. Brian, as you know, we've been getting our pretty quick turnarounds on our grant submissions.
I think that's credit to you, Mr. Gross, because you've gotten very skilled at writing the submissions.
Yeah, thank you. We just got substantial approval. Believe it or not, even though there are like 5 or 6 steps on all of these grants, we just got substantial approval on the Mountain View Middle School turnaround. So even though we had final approval, et cetera, they make you go through it again, and they put it in the grants management system, and then accountants look at it. And, so we're good there. And but again, this is something that we're hoping that the board will review at Spring Fest, because part of the criteria for these grants is to engage with the community as to where we spent the money. So we're going to have this for your board.
For the little kids.
Yeah. So are there any questions from any board members with respect to these ESSER grants?
With the last group for the preschool, does that also expire in?
24.
24.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for Scott?
I'd just like to say, you do an awesome job in juggling all of them, to keep the grants up to date and fulfilled and everything.
I dream about this stuff.
Scott has done a remarkable job
it's a lot of
managing all
work.
these projects. And so not only does he know every single one of these, he's tracking it, he's monitoring, he's chasing after bills. Scott really has done an incredible job. If you think about the burden, and really, this is a nice problem to have, but they gave us all this money, and now we had a lot of work to do. And the majority of that really came down to Mr. Gross. So Scott has been absolutely unbelievable in managing all these grants.
Thank you. And I will say, I mentioned this to A&F, that we have gotten just a ton of good feedback from the sign and here at the high school, where, if you recall, a grant partially funded it, and there was also a donation from the classes. I have spoken with a couple of the parent like the PT, what do you call it? Maple Avenue PFT and Mountain View Partnership, and both of them are entertaining the thought of doing replacements of those signs and helping. So that's why I'm getting quotes, so that with this 55,000, if we end up in that spot, we might be able to do a couple more using also a combination of matching funds from some of these organizations, because they see the value too in communicating with parents and just the community overall. When we canceled the election, the first thing was, can you put it on Goffstown High School's reader board, and just, so, and it was on the Parks and Rec one. So those little things, when it's an emergency, are big.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, the big thing about the one here at the high school is that it's on Wallace Road. It's not on a side road like Maple or Mountain View, but general public
Sees it.
sees it up and down Wallace, which is a really, really big help.
Absolutely.
So,
All right, any other, go ahead, Retta.
Just a request, Scott, when you do the handout for the Spring Fest, can you spell out ESSER? And maybe give a little summary of why we're getting these fundings.
Good idea.
Just, if people have questions, it's good.
People
if-
certainly wouldn't know what ESSER stands for.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Right.
I don't think anybody knows what ESSER stands for.
I had to
do.
just
No,
look
I
it up.
don't. I know.
Elementary and secondary education response.
So is everybody set with?
Emergency relief.
Emergency.
Is everybody set with the ESSER update from Scott?
I
ahead.
think it's important for people to know, too, this was like a COVID thing, and it, like, nothing like this will happen again.
Well, yeah, it was COVID, but it was also, don't forget, COVID plus stimulus.
Right.
So it's both. It was
But-
addressing COVID and stimulating the economy
due to COVID.
I
due to
think,
COVID.
yeah,
right.
I think the public should know that,
Yeah.
that funds like these aren't going to be coming
Oh,
to
no.
us
No.
again.
All right.
Be nice if they did.
Yeah, it would
It would
be.
be wonderful.
All right, so we're moving on to new business. We have a draft in our packets of the next school year calendar.
So what you'll see on the calendar before you, and I'll just kind of do the highlights. First thing I would share is you'll notice that next year, the only election that we have at this point is we have the local elections, the second Tuesday in March,
So
and
you're saying pre-scheduled election?
Pre-scheduled
Or
election.
announced election.
Yep. There's also a presidential primary that if only we had an inside guy in the State Department, we could find some inside information from the Secretary of State's office.
Too bad.
But we haven't gotten any of that special information. But somewhere in here, either in January, could be December, will be the presidential primary. So we'll deal with that. But it sounds like that could be announced like really late. So
Define late.
well,
After we.
After now.
After we, yeah. After we have.
After we approve the
Likely
calendar.
after we
Right.
approve the calendar.
after we approve the
most
calendar.
likely.
So a couple of other highlights that I'd share is you'll see that there are 3 teacher workshop days before school starts. This is the first time we have ever been able to do this, and we're pretty excited to be able to front load a lot of training. So for example, Mrs. Kohler and I have been working with the other administrators, and we are already in the planning stages of what those days would be, but think big topics like Schoology, new math program, school safety. So we've got a couple of big topics that we already have planned. You'll see that Columbus Day did remain on the calendar as a holiday, as did Martin Luther King Day. And apart from that, the calendar is very straightforward. We're starting after Labor Day. So Labor Day is Monday, September 4th. Students will start on the 5th on that Tuesday. So kids have, I think, a nice long break. We're going to have those 3 teacher workshop days the last week of August. And then apart from that, it's really just a typical calendar. You've got your Christmas vacation. You've got your February vacation. This is not the Massachusetts week. We double-checked it, and we also aligned with Manchester as best as we've been able to. So at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions, if I can answer, or maybe Wendy can.
Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in all likelihood, with the addition of a primary election, the last day of school would be the 18th.
If we chose to close school, then the last day of school would move to that Tuesday, the 18th. If we chose to do a remote day, then we would just build that into the calendar, and it would still be the 17th.
May I follow?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have a preference at this time, or are you waiting till next Tuesday to figure out how it works?
So we haven't really talked to principals about this at this point in time. All we've told them is it will either be a non-school day or it will be a remote day. So we kind of haven't even gotten that far yet.
Well, I'm just, though I appreciate the principal's input, I'm sure that parents also have some type of input that they might want to put in. Because, especially for those parents that have young kids, it's hard for us to be able to vote and make sure that they have their remote schooling as well.
Sure. And I don't have this calendar has us out pretty early. So, if we add a day or two to the end of this, it's still fairly early. Some of us remember going until June 30th some years, so.
That was the old days, when we actually had snow days.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was due to snow days.
Are you all set, Jared?
I'm good for now, thank you.
Okay, Shane?
Thank you. With the 3 workshop days to begin the year, is there any thought given to building in some really good time with our still kind of new teacher mentorship program? Because with that amount of time, it seems like there's a lot of time that can be used for that purpose.
Sure. Mrs. Kohler?
So we also, before those 3 days, we have our new teachers in for a week. And during that week, we do something called Green Book training, where we kind of teach them of what does good teaching look like here in Goffstown or in New Boston, because we have our New Boston folks with us too. As part of that, they have time with me to go over all of that. They have time with their building leadership, and they have time with their mentors to be able to kind of go over things before they're kind of immersed in that 3-day training. throughout the year as part of our mentorship program. We also have different events that we hold in order to keep that group kind of connected with one another, and also to make sure that our mentors have an opportunity to continue to grow in their role to be able to help all of our new staff. So we'll have a lot of time embedded even before those 3 days.
Awesome, that's even better.
And Wendy, I would just remind the board that for the first time, we're now paying teachers to be mentors. This is an informal program we've had for decades, but this is the first year that we actually have had the funds to pay them.
You all set, Shane?
Excellent, thank you, guys, yeah.
Ginny?
Do you think that you would also have some time in those, because we have 3 days, for the different sections of teachers to be able to get together and work to start their school year, to do some planning and that kind of thing?
Yes, at the building level, the principals and their leadership teams will make time for those professional learning communities. So for departments to be able to get together, grade levels to get together, so all of that will be embedded during those 3 days as well.
You all set? All right, well, I would like to mention at the end, I like that you now color the potential makeup days so that people see if we have a snow day, we add to the end of the year. And I like that there's 9 days right there that if we have to cancel school for whatever reason, it gets tacked on. So I like that you added that shading this year. So we're not approving this tonight.
So we can. A couple of just maybe cautions. New Boston is seeing this on Wednesday evening. I don't anticipate that New Boston would have any disagreements with the calendar. In the past, this board has been very, I think, kind to not approve calendars
Right.
before they've had the chance to see them. I've been talking about this calendar for months. So even though New Boston hasn't seen it, I have shared with the board that at this point, we had a calendar in draft stage that had 3 teacher workshop days. So the New Boston board has kind of heard the sentiment of this.
But they haven't seen it.
They have not seen it.
So
They have not seen it.
I'm okay with waiting till the next board meeting, give them a chance to see it. Is everybody okay with that?
The only challenge with that, are we still required to have it uploaded by April 1st?
That's,
No, they keep changing dates on us.
Okay, so if we give, we'd be fine, okay, because they used to require us to upload it by April 1st, but if they're not requiring that this year, then no problem.
We
So what does
can
everybody want to
also-
do?
I think it's a courtesy, it would be nice just to wait.
We've always waited.
Or you could do contingent upon.
Contingent
Yeah,
upon.
You do that, too.
I'll move approval of the 23-24 school calendar contingent upon New Boston's notification.
Okay, hang on a second, Ellen. Go ahead, Dan.
That's kind of what it was. I was going to say, we can tentatively approve it pending
What
New
their-
Boston's review.
Okay.
And then if there's no
Objection.
objection,
Okay.
we can
So
get it
Ellen
posted by April 1st.
made the motion. Did you get that motion, Denise? So do you want to second it, Dan?
Can
You don't have
repeat the
to.
motion?
It's pending the New Boston
Review.
review.
Just that word?
Well, she said it was contingent on,
Did she say anything about the school, what the topic was, like the Goffstown school calendar, rather
Yeah.
than assuming?
it's an assumption.
Yeah, I don't like
Okay, no.
assumptions. Could you?
I
state?
move that we approve the 23-24 school calendar pending New Boston's review of it.
Approval? Or review, or
Review
just
of it.
approval?
Approval.
Review of it.
Okay, so if they don't approve it, but they review it, we're still gonna say, okay. That's what the motion says, if that's what you mean.
If they have an objection, it'll come back to us.
No,
No, they have to
not
approve
according
theirs.
Not if we've already
to
approved it.
your
Right.
motion.
If you say approval instead of review. Right?
That's
Well,
what
I
it
have a
would do.
philosophical problem with that, but I'll
Then-
go with whatever you people. I think
Then
this is a
someone
school
else-
calendar, we are the district,
Yes.
major district, and if we approve it, this is what it is, unless there's something very major that is objectionable.
Then the word you used was what you meant to use.
Yes.
That's okay. So this would become effective after the New Boston School Board meeting on Wednesday.
Right.
I just have a question about what we're approving, because if they don't approve it, we're still going to approve it. We're saying,
That's what
That's what the
Ellen is
motion
saying.
on the
That's
floor
what the
says.
motion's saying.
It hasn't been seconded.
Right, is anybody in a second? All right, so no, so motion dies. So, does anybody want to make a motion for this to approve it with, what was the word we used? I don't remember depending on what New Boston says?
Yeah.
Or wait until the next board meeting?
But the New Boston review is the way you put it.
Right. On contingent.
Didn't I say pending New Boston's review?
No, you
New
said.
Boston's approval.
Yes, you just said pending their review.
Yeah.
That's, what that does, it means it, whether they like it or don't like it, it is what it is.
Right, and we've not done that before.
Right.
So,
We
May
want
I
that a
suggest we
motion.
just
want
wait
that a
2 weeks
motion.
because April 1st isn't important?
right,
That's what I heard.
which is what we've always done in the past, is wait. So is everybody good with waiting till the next board meeting to approve this calendar? Okay.
New Boston will appreciate it.
Yes,
They-
we've
they-
always
I
done
just-
that.
I know that I speak for that board when I say they appreciate that
Yes.
you give them the ability to review things.
Absolutely. All right, so we're good, we're
Thank you.
moving on?
Yep.
All right, school staffing.
So we have a couple notification leave of absence of Susie McQuaid, who will be out for the remainder of the year. That's a notification only for your approval. We have a resignation from Mr. McDermott. Don't worry, Mr. McDermott is, of course, staying on as our new administrator here at Goffstown High School as his curriculum position. And we have a resignation from a world language teacher at Mountain View, so we would need your approval on both of those
Two
resignations.
All right, do I have a motion for the two resignations? Jared?
No, I got a question.
Sure,
but,
go ahead.
Just remind me, I know that we've had this conversation before, but for the teacher resignation, their contract is ending on the same day of the resignation, correct?
So her resignation would be effective at the end of the school year.
So if her contract is lapsed, why do we need to accept her resignation if she's not signing a new contract for the following year?
Because she's resigned.
But her
Well, it
contract-
allows us to post the
Post the
job.
job now.
So this is just allowing us to post a job, is what you're saying?
Yeah, so, thank you, because in our CBA with the Teachers Association, there are all timelines and postings, and yes.
Gotcha.
So, Jenny, did you have a question or a
No.
comment? All right, so I need a motion for the two resignations.
I'll make a motion to approve the resignations of Kurt McDermott as the technology teacher at GHS and Kathleen Rozeski, thank you,
Thanks, Will.
as a world language teacher at GHS as well.
All right, thanks, Shane. Do I have a second? A second. By Caroline. Any further discussion?
Only to say, do you regret reading their names now?
I thank
It was a
Lil.
great idea, I liked it.
I thank Lil for her expertise in the name
You're very
department.
welcome.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, go ahead, sports.
And lastly, we have all of our co-curricular nominations for the spring. You'll see here, ones that are new have an N next to them, and many of these are volunteers. But again, many thanks to all of our wonderful teachers, community members, there are parents in this list, all of them. So many thanks to all of them.
What does the T mean?
Transfer.
The T is a new one. I had to look that up as well.
Yeah, it's on the back.
I thought it was
Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
typo.
No, that's okay.
But it's a transfer,
question.
and I took that to mean that maybe Cassidy had done something else.
Done a
that-
different sport.
Yeah,
Different,
I'm
or a
not-
different school,
Or a different
like
sport.
Mountain View or something?
I don't know. She's a volunteer, so I mean,
Okay.
you see here how many people give their time, and we continue to be so fortunate. When you look down this list, volunteer, 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 I mean,
Yep.
there's a whole slew of them. So these are all people that are giving their time, their energy, their expertise, and this is not costing the school district anything. So thank you to all these
Yes.
wonderful
So
people.
we'll need a motion for
Move
the
to approve the
nominations.
co-curricular sports nomination as
Right.
presented.
Thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second? By Ginny. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, okay, we're unanimous. All right, so is there other business that may legally come before the meeting? Nope, but we do have non-public.
We do have a short non.
I know, short.
I hope it's short. Should be short.
I'll need a motion to go in non-public under RSA 91A 32C.
So moved.
By Jared.
Second?
Dan, you're seconding it?
Yes.
All right, I'll do roll call.
Yes.
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 Caroline.
Yes.
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 And yes. All right, we're in non-public. We'll go to the conference.